Let's check out the overproduction of figures. Check out all the Marvel Legends. More over.
Go watch his video. It's not too long. Yeah, he's talking about how Hasbro overproduced. This is kind of funny because of the recent issues with like Magic the Gathering and stuff, and how Hasbro's just having a hard time. And look, they're doing things like Secret Lair and Magic the Gathering, for example. They used to be print on demand, or they made like X amount, and now they're gonna make such a smaller number. It's gonna be impossible for the average collector to get their hands on. I love collecting cards, but I don't have $1,000 to spend on a set. I don't have $200 to spend on a set. It's just not gonna happen. They're losing me as a customer in that respect. I do believe though that there needs to be a true collector's market, and production needs to be reduced. These companies are most likely outsourcing their production and having to produce tons, just tons, so they can get as cheap as possible. For example, if I want flags made on Alibaba, right? In order for me to make that cost effective to resell those, because that's what Hasbro is doing, they're licensing a product and reselling it. I've got to get the production cost as low as possible. So instead of printing 10 flags, and going, I only have 9 customers, I'm going to print 10 flags of one extra. No, now to make that production cost low, I have to make 1,000,000 flags, and now I have that many left over, right? And this is what's happening. So the market becomes flooded. Everything's too common. I can't, even with Nerf needs to make, common stuff, but in limited quantities. I can't tell you the number of Fortnite Nerf blasters I see at thrift for cheap. Those should be rare. There should be a collector market. There should be a reseller's market for the collector's market. This helps everybody. I mean, everybody. But this is what they've chose to do, and this is going to kill those companies. Hasbro is having a hard time right now. The toy market isn't down because people don't like toys. Like, I keep hearing that. If people don't like toys, that's why it's down. Nobody's buying these toys. It's down. No, they overproduced. Overproduction is like one of those business things that's talked about. Don't overproduce your product. You need to meet demand, not exceed it. And that's what they've done. So what happens? These toys end up on sale. Now, I buy toys cheap if I can. I haven't bought any in a while. I buy them to collect. I have a shelf that I'm putting together right now. I was going to move at one point, took it down, and I'm putting it back up. But it's got collectibles. And I buy a lot of my stuff secondhand. Sometimes I buy stuff brand new. But I remember when action figures were fairly affordable, fairly cheap in between, but they were unique. Now they're churning out things that look so much the same, it's ridiculous. Funko, too. Funko needs to produce limited range products for just about everything they do. There's some Funkos they produce so many of. Like, I don't think they're doing their market research right, that they're producing, 10 million of one figure, and then I see 3 of them at the thrift store in the same day. Like, not even kidding. I've seen that happen. I'm seeing Funkos show up in the bins. One company that's kind of doing it right is Kelly Toys, I think it is, with Squishmallows. They're only producing so many. They need to keep that there, but they're starting to edge up the production now, and it's making them less rare. This is why the early Squishmallows have an excellent resale value, but the mid-model region, after the wave hit, they started overproducing. They should have kept the supply strained, because they'll create that demand. People will want them, but they're not doing that. They're in it to get as many sales as quickly as possible, and it just ruins the market. Same with Ty. That's what happened with Ty, right? Like I've talked before, I have Princess Diana bears here. The speculative market says they're worth 400,000 or 10 grand or 2 grand. They're not. The reality is I can sell them for $5 with $5 shipping, and that's what they're worth, because they produced over 4 million of those. Something, I forget the number now. They produced millions of those, millions of them. And Ty Warner intentionally did things like put defects in them to make them seem rare when they weren't. I'm not even kidding. You can look up the history of Ty, and that's what was done. They purposely put defects in to make them sell more. In fact, one of the things that people consider a defect that's not is like the rainbow bears and stuff, the tie-dye bears. They're not different on every one because they strove to make them that way. It was the fabric they got to make the tie-dye pattern had to be cut in such a way that each one was rare. So that's why almost none of the tie-dye bears or Iggy, I think it's Iggy, none of them look the same, because the patterning, the swirl patterning of the tie-dye on them is just slightly different. It has to be. Whereas Princess Diana, I have 2 of them here. They're exactly identical. The errors match, all of that. They're the same type of pellets, same tag, everything. There were like millions of those produced. It became coveted. I forget the reasoning. I think it was a rumor or something, but it was also Princess Diana, obviously, the thing at the time, but it became something so overproduced, it wasn't rare anymore. And again, I put that offer out there. I'll put a listing if somebody says they're willing to buy, I'll put it up and I'll send a link to them for it through the eBay store. But I don't, I hold on to them is what I do. I've considered destroying some of the Ty Beanie Babies I have to start making the market less saturated, because at this point, really for them to become more expensive, which I do foresee years from now, hundreds of years from now, there'll be something special maybe. I mean, that may be an exaggeration. Maybe it's 50 years. But I think there'll become something special when there's not that many left anymore. But, you know, some of those are going to break down. I think they moved over to PVC pellets or plastic. They moved to one or the other type of pellets because one of the types of pellets is breaking down. I want to say it was the PVC lasted longer, but the plastic pellets started to disintegrate at a point. So a lot of those may not be good after a while, but you know, we'll see what happens with it. But yeah, I mean, that's what's going to happen, right? So with Magic the Gathering cards, the first few sets they did had very limited run, and then after that they started producing millions upon millions of the cards, and they're just not worth that much until a lot of those cards get destroyed, go missing, those kind of things. I've seen some cards I've had go from being 10 cents a piece in value to $1.50, specifically because they've reported that those cards had got destroyed. You know, it's not much when you're getting your cards at a nickel or 10 cents a piece like I do for resale, and then you're trying to sell them, you need them to be a certain amount. So, but yeah, I mean, certain cards become popular because they get banned and people suddenly want them, or they're not able to buy them anymore, or they want this specific version. There's always things like that, but I feel like same happened with comics too. So I can keep going on all products, but anyway, what are your thoughts on this, guys? What do you think has happened to the collector's market? Do you foresee things rebounding? Do you think Hasbro is going to claim bankruptcy? Is that a thing? If there's an article, I haven't seen it yet, but do you think Hasbro may declare bankruptcy? Do you see Wizards of the Coast going bust? I think that may be a thing that we'll have to look at. Anyway, what are your thoughts, guys?